Hello. This podcast has been a long time coming. All right. Hi, friends. My name is Audrey Gerhard. If you're here from Instagram, my Instagram account is Knits in Pieces with an underscore at the end. And I am taking the plunge today and filming my first podcast episode. We'll kind of see how this goes. About a year ago, I jumped into Instagram and knitting, and it's really kind of taken off. And I have been thinking about starting a YouTube channel since I was literally like 13. I've been watching YouTube, different people on the YouTube community, and I have been really inspired by several different knitting podcasters to kind of create my own content in my own channel for a while, and this is where we're at. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So this is going to be a knitting podcast with a little bit of a focus on design and a little bit of a focus on test knits and a little bit of a focus on whatever I want to focus on. I've been knitting for 7 to 8 years now, but I recently picked it up, like I said, about last year, almost a year ago. I really picked it up and dove in full force and said, okay, if I'm gonna do this, if this is gonna be my hobby, I wanna learn everything there is to learn, and I really wanna get into it. And so I made an Instagram account to kind of document my progress along, and I have learned a ton in the past year. I've connected with some really awesome people on Instagram, and now moving into this new platform. So yeah, that's super exciting. Like I said, this is something that I have thought about doing for a long time. So a couple things about my background here. We'll see. This is where I'm getting a lot of light because I have 2 windows right in front of me that are letting light in, and then there's lamps in this room as well. So this is definitely where I have the best light. I know that the background kind of looks crooked. Sorry if that bugs you. This shelf here, maybe you can tell, actually needs to go about a foot to the left. But to do that, I would have to take everything off of it, move it, and then put everything back on. So that's a project that I'm kind of saving for a rainy day. We'll see if and when that happens. Anyways, it needs to move. There's an outlet down here. Sorry if this is like, you don't care. There's an outlet down here that we didn't want to block, so we left it. You can even see it through this cubby. So that's why it is where it is. But then I bought chairs, and I put a chair on either side, and this chair, you can see, overlaps with it just the slightest bit. So really it needs to go to where the outlet would actually be behind this cubby, so you could still, this column of cubbies, so you could still access the outlet, but there's also room for this chair. So yeah, that's a project that I'm gonna have to do at some point, but we'll see. Sorry if my kind of crooked background is bugging you, though. This is the shelf where I keep my husband and I keep all of our board games and books, and then to my left is where I keep my yarn stash, and on the floor to my right, have all the pieces that I'm gonna talk to you about today. So we'll start with kind of a what I'm wearing segment. I am totally new to this whole thing, obviously, so I'd love any constructive criticisms about the structure of what I'm doing, or kind of what you like to see, what you don't like to see. But I thought for today's first episode, it would be appropriate to wear the sweater that I most recently finished. So this is my holiday sweater. It was designed by Sewarella. And I love this one. I knit it with Lion Brand yarn, a touch of Mohair, which is a DK weight yarn, and it's in the Fuchsia Rose colorway. This sweater includes instructions for both a turtleneck and just a regular neckline. I obviously chose to do the regular neckline because I don't love turtlenecks, and so it does end up being a little bit wider, but it's definitely, like, it's sitting well on my shoulders. It's not falling off or anything like that. It stays in place, so I don't mind that it's a little bit of a wider neckline. I actually kind of like that. This is a yoke sweater, which I'm new to designing. I'm totally new to knitting sweaters. I've knit 4 sweaters, I believe. I'm working on a 5th, and then I've knit a tank top as well. So I'm totally new to garment knitting. I'm kind of taking the plunge and learning everything I can. But I want to stop and explain for those of you who are also new. Yoke sweaters have, so a top-down yoke sweater versus a top-down raglan. Those are 2 words you'll hear a lot. A yoke sweater, which this is, you would cast on your neckline, you knit your neckline, then you have a row where there's a lot of increases right here so that you can kind of start to accommodate the shoulders. You knit a little bit, you have a row where there's a lot of increases, you knit a little bit, then you have a row where there's a lot of increases, which if I scooch a little bit closer to the camera, you can see where my where my increases are. It kind of creates this striped look. You can play around with color blocking within those stripes, but you can see it. I really like the look. I think it looks really pretty. They're really fun to knit because you don't have to worry about increases so much. You just measure and then you increase all at once and then you're done. So then you would separate for the sleeves and then you knit the rest of the body. So this is a yoke sweater. I'll talk about raglan sweaters later in the episode because it's one of the things that I'm going to show you actually. The feature, or what makes this sweater unique, is the long pieces of ribbing. So you can't see it so much because I chose to eliminate the turtleneck. You don't see so much ribbing on the top, but there's a longer piece of ribbing at the armbands, and then also, sorry, I'm sitting on the floor, so it's kind of creased, but there's also about 8 inches of ribbing. This is where my belly button is, so there's 8 inches of ribbing for the bottom of the sweater as well, which kind of gives it this really cool, like, puffy, very elegant look, I think. So yeah, I really enjoyed making this sweater. A couple of things. The sleeves on this, because they're supposed to have that kind of puffy look, you pick up for the sleeves and then you knit all the way down and then you decrease all at once right here and knit the ribbing, which I really liked. Again, it eliminates the element of having to count for sleeve decreases. What I wish I would have thought about before, which again, because I'm new, I haven't really experienced any of this before, but I definitely have shorter arms than what the pattern was anticipating. I shortened the sleeves, and because of that, I like knit all the way down to here and then I knit this part. And so if I did it again, I probably would make this part actually an inch or two longer, and I would have shortened like the upper arm part instead of the lower arm part, just to give you that effect of that elongated ribbing, which obviously this has, but I would have made it even a little bit more drastic with the way that I modified it. But overall, I'm really happy with the sweater. I wear it a lot. I would say it's one of my favorite sweaters that I've made, but because I have, do I have 3 or 4? 3? I think I only have 3. Because I only have 3, it doesn't really mean much for this to be one of my favorites, because they're kind of all one of my favorites. So yeah, that is what I am wearing today. The other finished object that I'm going to show you guys today is a scarf that I actually designed. So if you follow me on Instagram, I have been designing for a few months now, and this is the pattern that I most recently started talking about on my Instagram, and it is in testing right now. So this is the Everest Scarf, and it has this cute little, let's see how well you can see it. It has this cute little chevron pattern that's created by alternating knits and purls, and then it's got garter stitch edges with these really pretty selvage borders. So I'm really in love with the way that this scarf turned out. It is about 65 inches before blocking, I believe, and then mine did block out quite a bit. Not quite a bit. I didn't measure it after blocking. I just kind of blocked it out. So it's longer than 65 inches now. It's a really, really good length, so you can definitely like double it up and pull it through like this. You have a lot of flexibility with the waist to wear it because it's a really good length, but it's not so like bulky that, you know, it's humongous, I guess, if that makes sense. This was made using worsted weight yarns. This worsted weight yarn, this was a collab with an indie dyer. Her Instagram handle is Flower Garden Yarns. I will try to link everyone that I talk about below. I'm totally new to this process, so give me grace, but if there's somebody or something that I mention that you don't see linked, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will try to get to everything. This was a collab. I used her yarn, and she is a really amazing dyer. This is my first time using her yarn, but this is her worsted weight. I believe it is 100% superwash merino, which is why it blocked out to be bigger than it is. One thing I did include in the note with this pattern, if you do purchase this pattern for me, you'll want to know, is that so because you have these blocks where you're knitting all here and then you're purling all here, it kind of ripples as you're knitting it, which obviously when it's hanging like this, you don't even see without blocking. But it does, those ripples do totally block out. You can see like it's laying, if I lay it like this, it's laying totally flat right now after blocking. So that's just because stockinette stitch tends to curl, and so you have like these stitches that are curling this way and then you're knitting the other way, so you have then stitches that are curling this way, so you get a little bit of a ripply look while it's knitting, but quick wet blocking solves that 100%. So yeah, this is the Everest scarf. I do not remember the release date that I set for this. I think that it will be releasing either January 31st or February 1st, but you can definitely find that date on my Instagram page. If you hop over there, yeah, I definitely keep people up to date. All right, so next is my whips section, which stands for works in progress if you're kind of new to this community. So my golden spot is usually about 4 works in progress. That gives me enough variety that I'm not getting bored, but not so much that I'm totally overwhelmed. So right now I technically have 5 things on my needles, but I've mainly been working on, well, I guess really 3 of them. And the other 2 have kind of been put to the side, but I would like to pick the other 2 back up within the next couple of weeks, which is why I went ahead and included them. I haven't really figured out what my schedule for this podcast is gonna be, if it's gonna be bi-weekly or monthly. It's definitely not gonna be every single week though, I can tell you, just because I don't have that kind of time. Bi-weekly or monthly, it may just depend on how much I'm knitting, honestly. So yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. So I'm gonna start with the 2 that I haven't been working on so much and just kind of get them out of the way. The first thing is a pair of socks, which is the Printemps ankle socks on Ravelry. They are a free pattern that was designed by Sarah Eichorn, I believe is how you say her last name. And this is what they look like. This is my first sock that I ever finished. This is the Cherry Blossoms colorway by Leading Men Fiber Arts. And I really love the color pooling on this yarn. I really, really love how this is working up. So these are a cuff down sock. I knit ankle socks for myself because I don't really wear higher socks. I feel like I have fat calves. And that's not like a self-deprecating thing. That's just like, I have problems with knee-high socks and like tall boots fitting me. It's pretty common for them not to fit around my calf. And so obviously you could modify socks, but because of that I mainly wear ankle socks, and so I was like, well, I'm just gonna knit myself some ankle socks. These have a really pretty Eye of Partridge heel on the back of them, and they are knit with a heel flap and gusset. So yeah, and then I have some toe decreases, and then I did Kitchener stitch on the toe to close them up, which came out really nice. So this was a lot of firsts for me, obviously, first sock. But I really like the way that it came out overall. And yeah, I don't know that I have that much more to say about it. I knit these pretty much to pattern. I don't think I modified them at all. I do have the second one, all tangled up because I haven't touched it in a while, but I do have the second one cast on, and I believe I finished the ribbing, but I didn't go any further before I kind of put it to the side. I have a set of Knit Picks or Knitter's Pride DPNs that I am knitting these on. I don't remember the exact size, but like I said, it's a free pattern and I'll have the pattern linked. So if you're interested in knitting it for yourself, the size is obviously listed in the pattern. I believe I'm making, I believe there's 3 sizes in the pattern, and if I remember correctly, I'm making the middle size, the medium. So yeah, the sizes are determined by the circumference of your foot, because the length you just knit however long you need it to be. So yeah, these are really comfy. I do have sock blockers. I haven't blocked them yet because I don't have the second one finished, so I'll block them both at the same time. That's those. Really loving the yarn. This was my first purchase from Leading Men Fiber Arts. It's really cozy and squishy. I believe that it is a 75-25 Merino nylon blend. So yeah, and I'm hoping to be able to get 2 pairs of socks out of this skein since I'm gonna do ankle socks. Hopefully I'll be able to get another pair of ankle socks out of it as well. So yeah, that's that. The second project that, excuse me, is the one that I haven't been working on as much either, is a pair of fingerless gloves. This is another free pattern. It is by, I know that her first name is Rachel and her Instagram handle is Maven Crafted. I don't remember her last name off the top of my head, but this is her Iris Mitts pattern. These have a really pretty detail. I'm just, again, untangling the yarn because I haven't worked on them in forever, so the yarn's kind of all balled up. So I am knitting these one at a time on DPNs. That's the way that I'm preferring to do smaller circumference items. I'm fairly new at that type of knitting, but I am liking DPNs better than magic loop for the most part, I think. So I am knitting these with an indie dyed yarn that was dyed by the Red Pansy. I believe this was a part of her Jane Austen collection. I mean, I don't remember what this colorway is called, and I don't think the tag's not in there. But she is absolutely amazing. I have several skeins of her yarn in my stash, and I really love this colorway. It's got these grays and reds, and then these pops of like almost like a Granny Smith green color. So it's really beautiful, and because it was a sock set, it came with a contrasting mini skein, which if you were knitting socks would be for heels, toes, and cuffs, but because I chose to knit the gloves out of this instead, this is fingering weight yarn, if it wasn't clear, because I chose to knit the gloves out of it instead, I'm using this little contrasting skein for cuffs, and then there's a little bit of a cuff at the fingers, so I'll use it for that as well. These have a really, really pretty cabling detail down the front of them. So that would be like this part on the back of your hand, and are really gorgeous. I'm really loving them, but I think they are going to be a little bit too small for me. I believe the largest size in the pattern, I don't remember. So I remember that the largest size in the pattern was about 1/2 inch smaller than what I needed. And in the pattern, she says if you're a little bit bigger, just knit the next size down because you want negative ease. And I was like, okay, so I started knitting them, and these are feeling really tight. They might block out to be a little bit looser, or I might end up liking the tighter fit. I don't know. I kind of have to get one done. This is the first one. I don't have the second one even started yet, so I have to get one done to see. But it's okay because if they are too small for me, I'm planning on giving them to my sister. Her birthday is in March, and so if these are really just too small for me and I end up really not liking them, I'll give them to my sister. And Rachel from Maven Crafted released another pair of fingerless gloves that goes up to a larger size, and I will knit those for myself, and I actually already have yarn picked out for those and everything. So totally happy with these, whether or not they fit me. My sister has smaller wrists and hands than I do, so yeah, not gonna be a problem at all. All right, I need a coffee break. Excuse me. Okay, so those are the 2 projects that, like I said, have been the first to kind of get put on hold when I have other things come up that have deadlines associated with them or that I need to get done sooner. So the other 3 projects I have been working on pretty consistently over the past few weeks. The first one that I'm going to show you is another pair of socks, and these socks I am knitting for my husband. They are 2 at a time, cuffed down, and I'm knitting them in magic loop. And like I said, I'm not loving the magic loop style of knitting these, but I wanted to try it. I really wanted to try knitting 2 at a time socks, but I'm thinking I'm gonna prefer just knitting them on DPNs 1 at a time, which is totally fine, because yeah, you never know unless you try. These are Mina's 2 at a time socks. I believe they are from the Knitting Expat on Ravelry. They are her free pattern. She has another pattern that's paid that is a little bit more in-depth or detailed or something like that, but these are the free pattern, and it's really, for a free pattern, it's really well written. I feel like everything that I'm showing you today is a free pattern, and I don't exclusively knit things from free patterns. That's totally just happenstance that's the way that it worked out, that all these things happen to be free patterns. Anyways, she is a really avid sock knitter. She has a lot of sock designs on Ravelry, but these are her basic 2 at a time socks. This is another colorway from Leading Men Fiber Arts. This is their pipeline colorway, and it has reds, grays, whites, and blacks, which is like my husband's colors. He went to NIU, and NIU's colors are red, white, and black, I believe, and then his favorite color is red. So when he saw this skein of yarn, he was with me at our local yarn shop, and when he saw this skein of yarn, he was like, oh, will you make me a pair of socks? And, so of course I had to get started. I actually am modeling these after a pair of socks, like his favorite pair of socks that he has that he wears, so that they will be a good fit for him. So his favorite socks that he wears all the time also happen to be on the shorter side. They have a shorter cuff, so I measured the cuff of his socks, and this is pretty close to the cuff on his favorite socks, and then I measured the leg as well. I did wrapped and turn heels on these, which the second one that I did came out okay. Like this one, I would say, is pretty true. Like that's what a wrap and turn heel is supposed to look like. This side has a few errors, but pretty close. The other one looks horrendous. Like somehow, and I'm still not sure what I did at all, but somehow on this sock, this side of the heel came out like inside out. Like you can see there's like little bumps along, and basically that's supposed to be on the inside of the sock, and it's on the outside of the sock. So I'm really not sure what I did. These are also a learning process. They, I think though, will still fit him. So that's the important part, even if they don't look perfect. So yeah, it's not that big of a deal because they're just for my husband, and they're just for him to like wear around the house and stuff because they're gonna be thicker. But yeah, I'm not really sure what happened. I liked the wrap and turn heel process overall. It wasn't too difficult. The instructions were really easy to follow. These look like little toes, but they're actually the heels, and then these are the cuffs. So yeah, I'm really enjoying these. Not loving the magic loop as much as DPNs, but I'm gonna push through and make these, and then if I don't do another pair of magic loop socks, I don't do another pair of magic loop socks, and it's not a big deal. Now that I've turned the heel though, it's pretty much just zipping down to the end of the foot and then decreasing and Kitchener stitch for the toes, which I've already done once before, so shouldn't be too hard to replicate. All right, the next project that I'm going to show you, I'm super excited about. It's another one of my designs. This one I am currently knitting, and when I finish knitting it up, I will write up the pattern, and then I will call for testers on Instagram. And a little bit of background. This is yarn that I bought before Christmas, so at least a month ago, more than a month ago, maybe even 2 months. I don't remember if it was November or December. And I really, really fell in love with this yarn, and I knew that I wanted to make something special out of it. And so I waited because I knew that inspiration would strike eventually and I would figure out what I wanted to do. And it totally did. It came out of a place of me wanting to have something to take with me for easy travel knitting, and I didn't. None of the projects that I had at the moment when that happened were easy for me to take with me. And so I really wanted something simple and straightforward. And this cowl design was born out of that. I am calling it the Arcadian Cowl, which means, Arcadian means like serene or tranquil, and that's really the way that I'm feeling about this knit. I'm really enjoying the process of this knit, so I'm not putting any deadlines on myself for when I'm gonna have the sample or the pattern done by. It will be done when it's done. But this is what I've got so far. So this is indie dyed yarn from Woolberry Fiber Company. I have bought several skeins of yarn from them, and I love it. This was a mini skein set that they released right before the holidays, so I don't believe you can get these exact colors anymore, but they have a lot of really beautiful colorways in their shop. So I bought 2 of the mini skein sets. They were 5 skeins of yarn each, and I'm knitting about 3 inches, which is almost a full skein. 3 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches, and then I'll go through and I'll do that twice. So then after the pink is this red skein, which is such a pretty red. and then I'll go through and I'll add a blue on top of the red and do it all over again. So this is being knit flat, and then it will be, the ends will be sewn together so that it will be a cowl. It will be about 30 inches before blocking, so plenty big enough for a cowl. And it's got, I haven't even blocked it yet. I haven't done anything yet, and it's already got such amazing drape. And I mean, look at, I'm so in love, especially with the contrast between the blue and the green, and the contrast between this dark green and this pink is just so perfect. So I'm really excited about this design. I've been working on it. Like I said, I'm not putting deadlines on it, so I've been working on it every spare minute that I can, and it's knitting up super quickly, and I'm super excited. I'm not excited about all the ends that this is gonna be weaving in, but I'm really excited about the way that the design itself is coming together. It's garter stitch, so it's super squishy and soft, and I love it. Garter stitch with those slipped stitches is one of my favorite knit stitches. Honestly, it's one of my favorite patterns. So yeah, this is DK weight yarn by Woolberry Fiber Co. I don't know how many yards the pattern will require quite yet, because I'll have to calculate it out after I finish. I have, between the two mini skein sets, almost 500 yards of that yarn, so it might end up being close to that, because like I said, I'm using about 1 mini skein for each block. So is that right? 500 yards isn't sounding right, but that's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. And then I'll show you this red skein again, because I'm so obsessed with this red. These are really tonal colors, so they've got a lot of, like, you can really see it in this deep green. Let me scoot closer. You can really see, like, it almost looks striped, the way the colors are pooling, but it's these really beautiful deep sections and then some lighter sections. The light green has like red speckling in it, like the littlest bit of red speckling, which is just so beautiful. And then this tonal blue, it's like a sky blue. Oh, it's all just so pretty. I'm so in love with every single one of those colors. Like I said, it was something I saw on their Instagram and I was like, I have to have that. So yeah, that's that. The last project that I have been working on recently is the one that I've been working on the most frequently over the past few days, and it is a sweater. This is a test knit for Maven Crafted, Rachel, who designed the fingerless gloves that I was talking about earlier. This is her first sweater design, and I am very excited to be testing it for her. It comes out in about 2 weeks, I believe, so that's why I've been working on this, because I've got to get cracking, because I've got to have it finished by the dates, which I'm not concerned about having it finished in time. I just have to make sure that it is. So this is the Cinnabar Sweater, and this was another one that I saw on Instagram, and I was like, oh my god, I have to make that. I applied right away to test, and I was like, even if I'm not chosen, I'm gonna purchase that pattern and make it because it's so gorgeous. This is what it looks like. So here's where we talk about raglan versus yoke sweaters. I explained how the construction of a yoke sweater. This is what a raglan sweater looks like. Raglan sweaters have these lines because you increase in the same place and you increase much more gradually. So the similarities, both of them, when you're knitting a top-down yoke or a top-down raglan, you cast on from this top edge right here. And you knit, typically ribbing is what you knit for the neckline. Then both of them have a row where usually you increase quite a bit right here. This one had that same increase row, I believe, where right below the ribbing you tend to increase quite a bit because it's a pretty big jump going from the neck hole to the ribbing. And then in a yoke sweater, you would knit a few inches, increase again, knit a few inches, increase again. Raglan sweaters, you typically alternate, I want to say usually it's every other row that you increase, like 8 stitches is what I've seen, because it would be 2, 4, and then on the back 6, 8. I believe that's how it usually works, and usually it's pooled so that you end up with these lines right along your armpit almost. I don't know. So yeah, this is a really gorgeous sweater. It's got some neck shaping, which was a new thing for me. This will be tightened up when I weave in this end, so don't worry, it's not falling apart. It just, the ends aren't woven in yet, obviously. neck shaping. It's got some short row shaping along the neckline, which was a new thing for me. Not as hard as I thought it was. The wraps and turns I did struggle with a little bit. There's a couple of places on the back of the neck where if you look really closely you can see the bars from where I picked up the wraps, but that's okay. This pattern has 2 different sleeve options and 3 different body options built into the pattern. So I am knitting it full length, no waist shaping, with fitted sleeves because that is the structure that I knew that I would wear the most. So it is almost done. I'm working on the ribbing at the bottom of the body, which is taking me forever. I hate doing ribbing. It's so tedious to do 1 by 1 rib. I love the look of it, but I hate the actual process of doing it. And it's 2.5 inches, which seems like a lot to me compared to other sweaters that I've done. But I'm liking the look. Like, I'm fine with it being 2.5 inches. It just seems like, I feel like other sweaters that I've done have only been 1 inch or like 1.5 inches. And then as soon as I'm done with that bottom ribbing on the body, I will pick up for the sleeves, and I'm doing full length fitted sleeves, so it will continue in this textured pattern on the sleeves as well. That's like several rows of knits and then a row of rib and then knits, or rib knits and then purls. So yeah, you've got that really pretty texture there. This is a worsted weight sweater. The yarn that I'm using is the Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca, which I was able to grab in their 5 for 10 sale. So I have a ton of this yarn, and I will definitely have leftovers after making this sweater, so I'm not sure, but I think I'll have 2 full skeins left over, which is almost 800 yards because they're pretty big skeins. So I'm not sure what I'll do with the 800 yards left over. That will become something else. But I'm loving the color. I'm loving this pattern. All of the sweaters that I have knit before this are very plain vanilla sweaters, meaning it's mostly just stockinette stitch. So I love those sweaters, but I'm really excited about all the texture on this one. That was a really fun new thing for me to incorporate. So yeah, that is the last thing that I have to show you guys today, I think. That pretty much concludes our first podcast episode. I am really excited about where this is gonna go. Like I said, I'm just kind of diving in head first, and we'll see how often I end up filming. I would love to do videos other than podcasts as well if you're interested in that. One video that I was thinking about doing, so you can let me know if it sounds like something you would watch, would be like how I organize my stash. So just kind of a tour of what's in my stash, how I keep it organized, and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in watching that video, let me know and I can film that one next. But yeah, it sounds like it would be fun for me to have to look back on it. So I may film it anyways, even if you're like, that sounds super boring, just so that I have it for me to look back on. Because that seems like it would be a fun thing to do. It's January right now, so it would be fun to do, to have to look back on the end of the year and see like how much yarn I actually used up, if I actually knit all the projects that I have mapped out right now. I keep looking to the left because that's where my stash is. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I am totally open to any suggestions or comments you have. Just please keep all criticism constructive. But yeah, all right, I will see y'all in the next video. Thanks, friends.